Hi, I'm Felicia Pullen, and this study is exploring the perceptions and experiences of people of color who use drugs in Harlem. It is in part funded by a grant through the CDC and one from the NIH and co-authored by Dr. Peggy Swarbrick. What we understood was that structural racism contributed to the overdose deaths of Black people in New York City. There was an intersection of race, poverty, geography, and addiction, and the study explored how those intersections impacted structural racism and the impact of negative recovery capital on people who use drugs. In 2023, New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene indicated that Black people for the fourth year in a row had the highest rates of fatal overdose. In fact, they were dying at 64.9 per 100,000 compared to 33.3 per 100,000 white people. Furthermore, we saw an intersection where communities with high poverty had a 5% increase in overdose deaths, and communities with wealthier neighbors and residents had a 9% decrease in overdose deaths. So therefore, we wanted to understand what was the intersection and how that contributed to the deaths of Black people in Harlem. We used a theoretical framework of the recovery capital framework, which assessed health, home, community, and purpose, and the critical race theory framework, which highlights how race and racism is embedded in society and contributes negatively to the health and wellness of people of color. We use a purposive snowball sampling, and we're able to interview through a semi-structured guide 30 people of color who are currently using drugs in Harlem. Predominantly, 78% were male, 57% were African American, 40% Latino, and all were using drugs in Harlem. The findings from the interview were that 73% either resided in Harlem or were using services there. 78% had some form of negative recovery capital, and that resulted in criminal legal involvement, homelessness, poverty, and food insecurity. 76.7% of people of color who use drugs in Harlem perceived the importance of access to political capital, which meant that they were looking for policies that were going to bring their voices to the table and to decriminalize drugs, improve housing conditions, and employment. I hope you enjoy this study as much as I did conducting it.